Morning. Just read Ezekiel chapter 16. That was a long chapter. I actually took 2 days to do it. It takes like 3 pages of my book, and most chapters take maybe 1. But what it did, it's still talking about this judgment on Jerusalem and their sin. It makes this comparison of Jerusalem to like starting off as a child abandoned by their parents, and God takes them in, which back when Abraham, believed in God, that's kind of what happened. And God clothed them and fed them, and they grew up. And then the comparison changes, and he says he makes Jerusalem like a bride. So he raised them and created them and brought them up, and then cared for them as you would a wife or a husband. And he loves Jerusalem. They're his chosen people. But then Jerusalem turned to idolatry and just became like a cheating wife. Like says it's like a harlot or a prostitute even. And he says that they were a poor prostitute because they actually had to go out and try to pay the people to cheat with them. So you just have this picture of Jerusalem and how their sin made them basically a cheater. And I see that because you turn to idolatry and you're no longer worshiping God, and God should be the one first in your mind. And now these prophets of Baal or whatever they were worshiping, the Babylonian fertility goddess or whatever, that becomes their God. It's like cheating on your loved one. And then he talks about the judgment that they'll get, and it'll be like the people you're cheating on will turn around and stone you, or you'll be disgraced in front of those you've been cheating on, and it'll be a very harsh judgment, and it's what a cheater would deserve, and in the end, he says that Jerusalem is like he compares it to Samaria and Sodom and other countries. And Sodom was so sinful that God destroyed Sodom. Their sin was just perversion, not necessarily idolatry. And he says that before Jerusalem should be restored, Jerusalem was worse than Sodom. Sodom would have to be restored first. But there is a promise at the end after this whole thing. That was just a comparison. He was giving them like a backhanded comment. At the end, though, he does give them the promise that God has a covenant with them, and they will be carried forth into the future. There's this promise of the Messiah coming from the line of David, and there's the promise that he made to Abraham that his seed will be multiplied and all this. So God does remind them of the promise, and he's still going to keep it. But the judgment has to come before he be pacified. He has to judge righteously before the pacification will come. So when you see problems with people's lives, and you see that God's maybe working in there and judging them in some way, they have to go through it to reach pacification. You have to go through the judgment to find peace. And sometimes the judgments are lifelong. Consequences of sin can be dire, and they can last forever. Like you get cancer from smoking, that's a consequence that'll last forever. you have a child out of wedlock, that consequence is forever. But it can be pacified in the end. Believe in God, turn back to Him. The judgment should turn you to Him, not away from Him. And when you do so, He'll be pacified in the end. So just keep that in mind when we're going through our judgments. In the end, we'll turn to Him. We should turn to Him. We should turn back to Him. Those people that are judging us, He's using them for judgment. They don't care for you. The God that's trying to get you to turn to Him, that's the one that cares for you. Return to the husband of your youth, is what He says to them. The one who first loved you, took you in. He really does care for you.